Chapter 161, Zhonghai Super Base's Arrival, 3 Cave Heaven Kings. Jinling Big Base. When Chu Mo left from the exit of the rift and returned to the base, he realized that the entire base had become somewhat different. Initially, because of the 10,000 Beasts sect, the entire base was in a state of panic. And now all that panic has dissipated. In its place was coziness and exhilaration. Walking down the street, Chu Mo was able to see that everyone's face showed a touch of stability and peace, as if they didn't have the slightest worry about the future at all. Even the inspection teams that were jointly formed by the major powers were nowhere to be seen. What's going on? Is it hard to believe that something is happening inside the base that I don't know about? Chumhum secretly wondered. Although they had resolved the turmoil within the Xian-level secret territory, and had also decapitated the martial practitioners of the 10,000 Beasts sect, in the end, they had not completely resolved the 10,000 Beasts sect. That so-called Lord of the Sacred Sect was still hiding in the shadows and hadn't come forward. It was reasonable to say that the large base in Jinling was far from being slack. With such doubts in mind, Chu Mo returned inside the villa, only to see that Chen Shiwei had already returned from her training. At the moment, he was in the middle of his quiet room, going through his daily training. When Chu Mo returned, she heard the commotion and walked out from her seclusion. "Husband, you're back." Seeing Chu Mo, Chen Shiwei's face immediately revealed a flash of excitement. "Yeah." Chu Mo nodded and asked, "When did you come back from your training?" "I've been back from the outside a month ago," Chen Shiwei said. After a pause, and some grumbling, said, "Speaking of which, you went to the crack to suppress the 10,000 Beasts sect. Such a dangerous thing also did not tell me. I came back to see that you were not there, and heard that several other venerable masters are injured and returned, only you did not come back. You are very worried about you. Good thing that chasing the Wind Elders said to me that you do not have a problem, or else I do not know what to do. I know it's wrong, and I won't do it next time." Chu Mo immediately apologized and admitted his mistake. "That's more like it." Hearing these words, a smile unfolded on Chen Shiwei's cool and absolutely beautiful face. "You just came back, take a rest first, I'll cook at noon to comfort you, husband," Chen Shiwei added. "Good." Trummer nodded. So Chen Shiwei walked to the kitchen and made a hearty lunch. The dining room table. The two of them ate and chatted idly as Chu Mo recounted his experiences in the secret realm, while Chen Shiwei recounted her experiences in the wilderness in the middle. Chu Mo suddenly thought of the changes within the base and couldn't help but inquire. The reason for this is because just over a month ago, the Central Sea Super Base sent reinforcements, 3 great powers of the Seal King realm. Chen Shiwei explained. 3 king sealing powers? Chuma was a bit shocked. Yes, these 3 Seal King powerhouses came here to help the Jinling Grand Base settle the matter of the 10,000 Beasts sect, and in the course of this month or so, they have struck out several times, and have already smashed multiple hidden strongholds of the 10,000 Beasts sect. It is said that they have also found out where the headquarters of the 10,000 Beasts sect is located, and are preparing to set out just in the near future to completely destroy the 10,000 Beasts sect. And because of that, the residents and martial artists in the base have it easy. Listening to Chen Shiwei's explanation, Chu Mo then came to a realization. I didn't expect the Zhonghai Super Base to be so big-handed, divided by pavilion, dispatching 3 Seal King realm powerhouses in one go. I also wonder how powerful the Cave Heavenly King realm is? He thought darkly, a wave of anticipation welling up in his heart. After dinner, the two of them spoke some more couples' whispers in the living room, and the atmosphere in the house gradually heated up. But just at this time, a Zhongshan martial artist came outside the villa, coming to visit Chu Mo on the orders of the Mo family's oldest ancestor. Trummer gave him a pass. This patriarchal martial artist quickly entered the villa, and upon seeing Chu Mo, he hurriedly bowed and saluted, "Greetings to Venerable Chu. Is there something that the Mo clan's oldest ancestor wants to see me about?" Chumhum asked curiously. "My family's old ancestor has learned that Venerable Chu has returned from the rift, so he has invited you to participate in the meeting that will be held 7 days from now." The 3 Seal King Realm powerhouses will also participate. This sovereign martial artist said truthfully. The meeting in 7 days? Even a Seal King Realm powerhouse will participate? Chima was a bit surprised, then asked, any idea what's going on? I don't know, little man. The sovereign martial artist said. At those words, Chuemo frowned slightly. Sitting on the chair and thinking, he spoke, go back and tell your family's old ancestor that I will definitely come as promised 7 days later. It is the little man who retires. This patriarchal martial artist bowed and then left. When he left, Chum-hum looked at the invitation. It was discovered that the invited martial artists did not only include the Jinling large base, but even the Zunis of several other large bases in the surrounding area would be invited to come. All the exalted from at least 5 large bases are here. There are also 3 King Realm exalted ones. Could they be discussing the matter of overthrowing the 10,000 Beasts sect's headquarters? Chumo thought darkly. Just right. He also wanted to take this opportunity to see just how powerful the Cave Heavenly King Realm was. The meeting in 7 days. Stay home now for these few days, cultivate well, and comprehend some of the Wind Upanishad that you have just comprehended. Within these 7 days, Chu-mo then cultivated while comprehending the Wind Attribute Upanishad. Given the power of the Morning Star ranked talent, Chu-mo's comprehension of the Wind Upanishad was very rapid, and in only 1 day, he had comprehended the Wind Upanishad from a single strand to a single point. It then took another 5 days or so to comprehend the Wind Upanishad to 8 points, just short of 10%. However, because the meeting was to be held, Chu-mo could only temporarily interrupt his enlightenment. It was noon on this day. Chu-mo spoke to Qin Shiwei, and then left the villa and arrived at the Jade Merchant Alliance headquarters building. There was no hesitation, and it went straight towards the top. Soon. He then entered the sumptuous hall. As soon as he entered, he saw that there were already more than 30 martial artists in the hall, each of them at the Zuni level. Chu-mo took a closer look and realized that all of them were actually familiar people. The vast majority of them had been seen in the last Big 5 base auction. Venerable Chu is here. Greetings, Venerable Chu. Venerable Chu, come sit with me. There are some things I need to ask Venerable Chu about in terms of cultivation, and I hope Chu Xiong will not be stingy with his advice. See Trummer. Many Zunis in the room came together and exchanged pleasantries at Chu-mo. The main reason why they were so enthusiastic was because what happened within the Xian-level secret territory was also proclaimed as Gut Song, and the Mo clan ancestor and the others came out. The crowd had also learned that Chu-mo, with his own strength, had killed more than a dozen 10,000 Beasts sect-honored beings, and saved the Jinling Great Base. Such strength naturally shocked their hearts. After all, in the end, Chu-mo was still only a Jin General Realm martial artist after all, yet he was able to kill the 8 Desolate Exalted in succession. Such horrible talent and qualifications. How powerful would he be when he truly stepped into the 8 Desolate Exalted Realm? And if he waited until he stepped into the whole Heavenly King Realm, how terrifying would he be? Granted, the King's Realm was difficult to step into. Countless martial artists, including exalted ones, could not touch the threshold of the King Realm in their entire lives. However, with the talent that Chu-mo had shown to this day, not to say that it was absolute, but at least there was a great hope that he would be able to step into the King Realm and become an existence that they could not hope to reach. Although they couldn't compare, it didn't prevent them from befriending Chu-mo at this time, which was considered a good relationship. Facing their pleasantries, Chu-mo also responded with a smile. Then sat down in his seat and waited quietly. One venerable arrived one after another, and soon there were almost more than 48 desolate venerables already gathered in the hall. Another half-hour passed. All the Zunis had arrived, and the total number had reached around 50. And by this time, basically everyone stopped talking and instead stayed squarely in their seats, concentrating. Trummer knew. It was those 3 King Realm powerhouses coming soon. Fruity. A few moments later, Chu-mo suddenly moved his expression and looked ahead, and immediately noticed three figures appearing in his eyes. They were all young in appearance, looking no more than 30 years old or so, and the aura on their bodies was bland, as if they were an ordinary person. However, Chu Mo could be certain that these three people were definitely not ordinary. Or else, there was no way they could have gotten to the middle of the venue without the vast majority of people reacting. Even Chummer. If it wasn't for the spatial talent's perception ability to detect a faint fluctuation, I'm afraid he wouldn't have noticed the arrival of these three people. Gentlemen, these are the three Cave Heavenly King Realm powerhouses that have arrived from the Zhonghai Super Base, namely the Bright Light King, the Thousand Leaves King, and the Songhai King. The Mo clan's old ancestor stepped forward at this time and introduced himself. We, the others, pay our respects to King Bright Light, King Thousand Leaves, and King Songhai. All of the exalted ones all stood up and bowed respectfully to the three kings. So did Trummer. A Cave Heaven King was the top pillar and mainstay of the human race. Each one was a pioneer of humanity, rising boldly at the beginning of the great change of heaven and earth, fighting with ferocious beasts and protecting the human population of millions. It is because of their existence, can only countless beasts under the water, so that the human race to flourish, growing, gradually expanding the living space, have more and more right to speak. So that mankind will no longer be the defenseless ants it was in the beginning. They were like a mountain of world-suppressing gods that stood between heaven and earth, causing countless ferocious beasts to not dare to easily advance so. Any human being, when facing a Cave Heaven King, needed to be in awe and give infinite respect. Not even an honored one could avoid it. All of you need not be polite. Directly in front, the Songhai King standing in the center waved his hand, signaling for the crowd to sit down, and then opened his mouth and said, "This time, we have summoned you and others to come here, and the main thing is to discuss the matter of purging the 10,000 Beasts sect. These human rebels have been wreaking havoc on my human race's borders for decades now, and every time they appear they are bound to stir up the wind and rain and set off turmoil. The human race has been unable to tolerate them, only because they are too deeply hidden, so every time they are purged, they are not fully successful. But this time, after all of you have worked together, we have finally found the location of the headquarters of the 10,000 Beast sect, so this time we will make our move and eliminate them all, leaving no more loose ends." Chapter 162 Ming Wang's Invitation, a Generous Gift. Listening to the Songhai King's words, the crowd of venerable masters present all nodded their heads and said, "King Songhai, feel free to command, as long as we can be of use, we will not be excused." Nice. We have suffered the 10,000 Beasts sect for a long time, but only because we don't have the strength, and now since there is a super base in Zhonghai to lend a helping hand, we will certainly not shirk our responsibilities. Overthrowing the 10,000 Beasts sect, in this battle. Dozens of Zunis said with a glance from you and a word from me. Yes. King Songhai nodded his head with great satisfaction, and then said, "For the extermination of the martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect, we also already have a charter, mainly the three of us, King Qianye, King Mingguang, and I will join forces to fight against the King Realm existences of the 10,000 Beasts sect that are likely to appear, and you guys are in charge of the periphery, preventing the escape of the 10,000 Beasts sect's martial artists. The time will be set for 3 days later, when the three of us will personally lead the team, and we will strive to wipe them out, leaving no one behind." Having said that, he then began to relate some specific details. The meeting didn't end until half an hour later. Numerous Zunis left in droves. Trummer also intends to bow out. However, right at this time, the Mingguan king, who had not said anything, suddenly dropped his gaze on Chu Mo's body and opened his mouth. "Pavilion Master Chu, please also stay." The words came out. Quite a few Zunis bet their gazes on Chu Mo, with a look of surprise on their faces. And Trummer was equally a bit stunned. Obviously, he was not clear on what the Mingguan king meant by leaving him behind. After all, he and the Mingguan king had not known each other at all previously, much less crossed paths in any way. Soon, the many exalted ones had all left the place. Within the entire hall, there was also only the Mo family ancestor, Mo Yangon, as well as Chu Mo and the 3 Cave Heaven Kings left. King Mingguang, I wonder what your orders are? Chummer asked respectfully. Little friend Chu Mo, and I don't have to be so polite, this time I left you behind. In fact, I want to express my gratitude to you. The Bright Light King said with a smile. Thanks? Chumo became even more puzzled. Venerable Chu, let me introduce to you, this King Mingguang comes from the Mo family, his name is Mo Mingguang, he is my elder brother. When he became a venerable some years ago, he left the Jinling large base and went to the Zhonghai super base to make a break for it, and now he has become a king. When my elder brother came back this time, he learned that it was you who saved us in the Xian level rift, and thus he wanted me to make some introductions so that he could show his gratitude. At this time, the Mo family's old ancestor introduced himself with a smile. And hearing this, Chu Mo then realized the reason. But then he was secretly a little shocked in his heart. No wonder the Jade Merchant Alliance had been the topmost force in the Jinling Grand Base since before, and even managed to get some of the latest treasures from the Zhonghai super base from time to time, so it turned out that there was actually a king in the family in the Zhonghai super base. Think about it. Chu Mo again couldn't help but think of the Su family back then. They had found the Divine Sword sect's secret sect at that time, in a vain attempt to use it to allow the family to rise to power, thus taking control of the entire base and suppressing the Jade Merchant Alliance. Now that I think about it, it's really ridiculous. Even if the Su clan produced a king as a result, I'm afraid that they simply wouldn't be able to fight the Jade Merchant Alliance. It was estimated that the only end would still be suppressed by the Jade Merchant Alliance, never having the chance to turn around. I already know all the things within the Xian level secret territory. I have to say, Chu Mo's little friend's qualification talent is really extraordinary, even if it's in the Middle Sea Super. There are few people who can compare. I'm afraid that it won't be long before there will be another king in my human race. The Bright Light King said with a smile. King Mingguang's fallacious praise, Chu Mo is really ashamed of it. Chummer said, shaking his head. Mingguang smiled, then continued, little friend Chu Mo, this time, in addition to expressing some gratitude to you, there's another thing. That invites you to join the Skies and Sea Pavilion. Skyward Court? Trummer was stunned. The Heaven's End Pavilion is the top power of the Zhonghai super base, and possesses quite a few kings, such as myself, the Songhai King and the Thousand Leaves King are all elders of the Heaven's End Pavilion. We specialize in absorbing geniuses. If little friend Chu Mo is willing to join, with your talent, you'll at least be able to obtain the position of true legend, and you'll be able to receive countless cultivation resources every year, and even the secret realms and treasures that my Heaven's End Pavilion has control over will be open to you as well, which will definitely make your future smoother and more promising at the same time, little friend. Well, would you like to join in? The Bright Light King said with a face full of anticipation. Hearing those words, Chu Mo finally understood King Mingguang's true intentions. Thank you for your kind words, King Mingguang, it's just that I don't like to be constrained, so I don't intend to join any of the forces for the time being. Trummer shook his head and politely refused. It wasn't that the conditions given by King Mingguang were not enough. The top power of the super base, plus the promise of a king, it could be envisioned that as long as he nodded his head, countless resources would surely be placed in front of him in the future, enough to make him move for them as well. Just. It's still the same. There were too many secrets in Chu Mo. Being in a big power, he would be subject to a lot of constraints, and his hands would be tied when he acted, which was not a good choice for Chu Mo. Elder brother, I told you, there's no way that Venerable Chu would agree so easily. I said at the time that you were working blindly. The Mo clan's old ancestor said with a smile from the side. That's just it, since little friend is unwilling, then I won't force myself, only if little friend Chu Mo changes his mind in another day, he can come to me at any time, my promise will always be valid. The Bright Light King sighed and said so. The words seemed rather regretful. Definitely. Chumma laughed. Afterward, Chu Mo chatted with King Mingguang, and during this time, King Songhai and King Qianya also came over and exchanged pleasantries with Chu Mo. The words were quite warm towards Chu Mo. Although Chu Mo is only a foursquare town general now, but his talent is and female strong, in the future there is a great probability to be able to become a king, and it must be a very powerful king. Maybe in the future they still need to look up to Chu Mo, at this moment naturally want to make good friendship with Chu Mo. The so-called king's frame, of course, could not be used on Chu Mo's body. And Chu Mo also had the intention of befriending them so that he could inquire about the Zhonghai superbase. Therefore, both sides can be said to hit it off immediately, and the more we talk, the hotter we get. It was only after chatting into the night that Chu Mo proposed to take his leave. Before leaving, the Bright Light King handed Chu Mo a storage bag, then without waiting for Chu Mo to refuse, he directly dashed away seeing the situation. Chu Mo could only smile helplessly. Back to the villa. Qin Shiwei had been waiting for him, seeing him come back then relieved, said hello and went back to his house. Instead, Trunks walked into his quiet room. Opened the storage bag. It was then realized that there weren't many types of items inside, only 3. A portion of ferocious beast blood. A martial art. Lastly, there is a large amount of yuanshi. However, when Chu Mo took a closer look, he realized that the ferocious beast blood was grade 7 ferocious beast essence blood. The yuan stones were even 100 million medium-grade yuan stones, which when converted, were worth 10 billion lower-grade yuan stones. As for the martial art, it was a gold-level martial art. Such a big hand interest divided by pavilion, so that Chu Mo cannot help but be slightly shocked. 100 million medium-grade yuan stones need not be cited. A gold-level martial skill was even more expensive and rare. When the 5 bases jointly organized the auction, there were so many heavenly materials and treasures, only one appeared, and it was auctioned for tens of billions of dollars. As for the grade 7 ferocious beast essence blood, it was even more so that it required a cave king to expend a great deal of energy to condense it successfully, and it was simply not something that could be bought with money. If you don't have a background, you can't have it, no matter how much money you put out. This gift is just too much. Chu Mo couldn't help but lament. If it was just a thank you, the Bright Light King wouldn't have had to pay such a large price at all, but he had taken it out, and it was obvious that there was a meaning of friendship in it as well. So much for that. But it made Chu Mo owe a great favor. That's just it. We'll just have to try to return the favor later. Chu Mo thought darkly. He then fixed his gaze on this martial skill and the ferocious beast blood. Grade 7 ferocious beast essence blood, if I absorb it down, it's enough to make my strength skyrocket. And this gold grade martial skill, named Heaven-Breaking Overlord Gun, is a gun technique martial skill, which I really can't use, but I can place it in the martial vault, or take it out later to exchange treasures with other martial artists. With that in mind, Chu Mo received all of these things within his carry-on space. Then he began to cultivate. As for this 7th level ferocious beast essence blood, Chu Mo did not absorb it. Since there were only 3 days left before his departure, and time was entirely too late, he intended to wait until afterward to dispose of it. Time rushes. In a flash, 3 days passed. This day, Chu Mo was in the middle of the quiet room when he suddenly felt a vibration from his communicator, and when he took it out to take a look, he realized that it was a message from the Mo family's old ancestor. The appointed time is here. Time to go. Chu Mo walked out of the quiet room and realized that Qin Shiwei was not there, so he left a note and then flew out of the place. When Chu Mo rushed to the headquarters of the Jade Merchant Alliance, he found dozens of Zunas standing in midair, and next to them was a very large imperial flying boat, with a streamlined appearance that looked as if it was in the shape of a water drop. Venerable Chu, you're here. At this time, the Mo family's old ancestor spotted Chu Mo and immediately came up to greet him. Chu Mo exchanged pleasantries with him, then he looked at the water drop-shaped flying boat and asked curiously, Elder Ancestor Mo, what kind of flying boat is this? Why haven't I seen it before? This is the latest type of airship developed by the Zhonghai Superbase. Not only is it fantastically fast, even compared to the 8 Wastelands Exalted, but it is also capable of astering its breath, making it difficult for outsiders to detect. This operation is a surprise attack on the 10,000 Beasts sect, so we have to make sure that we can't give the other side a heads up, so the three kings called one over from the Zhonghai super base. The Mo clan's old ancestor introduced, so it is. Chummer nodded in sudden realization. Speaking. Many venerable masters had already arrived. The three kings also appeared one after another, and after counting the number of people, without the slightest bit of nonsense, they directly waved their hands and shouted, "Depart." One by one, the Zunis entered the airship, and soon the hatch closed. The entire airship first shook with a slight tremor, and then steeply transformed into a stream of light, breaking through space and flying towards a distant place. Chapter 163 Attacking the 10,000 Beasts Sect Headquarters, Xiantian Dharma Phase Diagram. Chumo stood in the middle of the airship. Through the transparent barrier around him, he could see the scenery outside receding rapidly, and almost in the blink of an eye, he was already far away from the large base of Jinling. According to Chumo's prediction, the speed should exceed 300 times the speed of sound. This is definitely an extremely scary speed. More importantly, being inside the airship, he couldn't feel any shaking, and even the outside of the airship had a light blue light shield rising, directly wrapping up the entire airship. Mo dispersed his spiritual power and actually realized that he could not detect the shape of the airship at all, and the only way to detect it was to use his spatial perception ability. This kind of ship is really strong. If only I could own one. Chumo thought darkly. But he also felt that he shouldn't be able to reach that wish anytime soon. To be able to conceal his spiritual perception, which meant that I'm afraid it would be difficult for an ordinary king level to detect it, coupled with the fact that the speed was so fast, the price was bound to be extremely high. It was estimated that even within the Zhonghai superbase, the number was small. After all, even Thousand Leaf King, Songhai King, and Bright Light King, they did not possess one, and could only specialize in allocating one to come over when they were annihilating the 10,000 Beasts sect. This shows the degree of preciousness. Gathering his stray thoughts, Mo secretly thought about this mission. Honestly, this time, he was a little nervous about destroying the 10,000 Beasts sect. After all, he might face a powerful King Realm enemy. But more than that, it was exciting. As a huge organization, the 10,000 Beasts sect was bound to have countless heavenly treasures and cultivation resources, so if he could take the opportunity to scavenge a bit, it would allow him to reap a great harvest. As for whether or not the 10,000 Beasts sect could be annihilated in the end, Mo was not worried at all. The Central Sea Superbase had been staring at the One Beast sect for so long in order to pursue them, and now that they had obtained the exact location of the other party's headquarters, it could be said that everything was ready, not to mention the fact that the team was still led by three kings. Coupled with close to 50 Zunis, with such a strong strength, he didn't believe that a mere 10,000 Beasts sect could still make any waves. After all, if the strength of the 10,000 Beasts sect was really particularly strong, why would they need to hide their heads and tails near the large base in Jinling? It can be said that today's siege can be described as 10 to 1. The difference is only whether the siege is complete and perfect. Sure. That said, still can't afford to be careless in any way. The eagle fights the rabbit also uses all its strength. The 10,000 Beasts sect can survive for decades under the tracking of the Zhonghai superbase. It means that their underlying strength is also not bad, and under the negative resistance, it is not possible to say that there will be some terrifying undercard. Means the cave heavenly king realm might not need to worry, but they, the 8 desolate exalted, needed to be careful for a moment or two. Thinking so, Mo couldn't help but grip the autumn killing blade at his waist. The majestic chi and blood and saber intent around his body slowly flowed through his body. The Yuan Shen in the Violet Mansion meditated on its knees, and the golden wheel behind it grew tougher and tougher. Many talents flowed one after another. The spatial Upanishad and the Upanishad of wind were immersed in the lake of the heart. With so many cards in his hand, it was enough for him to be able to kill even peak 8 desolate exalted when he faced them, and he possessed the power to fight even an ordinary king. This put Chumo's heart at ease a little. The headquarters of the 10,000 Beasts sect was not in some deep forest or secret realm, but was hidden right inside a small base called Beha. Before that, no one had thought that the 10,000 Beasts sect would actually be so bold as to hide in a human base. Generally speaking, evil sects are hiding in remote places, the fewer people the better, but the 10,000 Beasts sect did the opposite, actually appearing directly under the eyes of humans in a dignified manner. But it is this that has led the strongest human beings to fall into a misconception of thinking. In the past, they had always searched in the wilderness or between ferocious beast gatherings, so in turn, they hadn't found out where they were truly lurking. But now, since their exact location had been obtained, the 10,000 Beasts sect would have no chance of survival at all. The airship was going fast 3 hours later. It had flown close to 400,000 kilometers and arrived within the small base of North River. They didn't go in directly, but instead stationed themselves outside the base, and it wasn't long before several figures flew out of the base and entered the airship. King Songhai. There were a total of 3 people coming, all of them were old-looking, and all of them also exuded the fluctuation of an aura at the level of an honored one, and they bowed to the Songhai king. "How are things in the city?" The Songhai king nodded slightly, then opened his mouth to ask. "According to your orders, we have collected our breath and have been monitoring this place day and night, and have not seen any signs of large-scale evacuation from the 10,000 Beasts sect. But there are some martial artists from the 10,000 Beasts sect who will go out from here, but we've marked them all to make sure we won't lose them. As long as King Songhai makes a move on your side, all the other martial artists will quickly strike to eliminate all those 10,000 Beasts sect martial artists that are already still out there, making sure that none of them are left behind." The man spoke. Upon hearing this, King Songhai couldn't help but nod his head in satisfaction. Then he, the 3 of them, the Bright Light King and the Thousand Leaves King, gathered all the venerable masters and began to lay out a specific plan for the siege. In fact, the battle plan is not how complicated, like this siege. The main thing is to raid, hit the other side a surprise, and the key point lies in how to completely surround the enemy. Do not make escape a person, but a plan is just a plan after all, and in the end, it's still strength that counts. With enough strength, victory is assured. But what was troublesome was that the martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect were hidden within the human base, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of residents. An exchange of blows at the level of Exalted One could cause thousands of miles of earth in a radius to be overturned, and a Cavern King could even cause tens of thousands of miles of earth to be turned into scorched earth. If they really want to do it recklessly, I'm afraid that once the hundreds of thousands of people within the small base of Beha are affected, I'm afraid that none of them will survive. I had already considered this before I came here. So this king borrowed the mountain and river map from the clan, which has its own space within it, and can cover the entire base and protect all the residents. The Thousand Leaf King spoke at this time. "In that case, we can let go and eliminate the 10,000 Beasts sect in one fell swoop." Hearing this, King Songhai and King Mingguang were instantly delighted and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. "Everyone, make sure to accomplish all your work at once, and never let these human traitors escape." Finally, King Songhai said with a solemn expression on his face. The crowd naturally answered in hushed tones. Yes. In the core area of the North River small base, there was a mansion that covered a large area. There were quite a few martial artists in the mansion, and none of them seemed to have a high strength, just at the level of martial artist or martial master, which was not conspicuous within this small base. But underneath the mansion, who knows where, there is a very large underground building. The moment a middle-aged man wearing a red robe with sharp bloodshot eyes was looking ahead, at a huge pool of blood. This blood pool was huge, hundreds of feet in size, filled with ferocious beast blood that seemed to have been boiled, emitting a gurgling sound. But the weird thing was that there was no smell of blood. On the exterior of the blood pool, there was a large formation and an altar next to it. If Chuemo had come here, he would have been able to recognize that this was clearly the 10,000 Beasts sect's blood pool transmutation formation. Nowadays, in the blood pool, there were hundreds of martial artists in it, and they seemed to be undergoing some kind of pain, with painful looks on their faces. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise came from within the blood pool. Looking around, he saw that it turned out to be a martial artist who couldn't withstand the process of being reincarnated into a ferocious beast, and his body exploded with a loud bang. And with that voice. Next, there were many more martial artists whose bodies exploded one after another. But the red-robed man's complexion, however, did not fluctuate in the slightest, as if he was already used to it. Soon, there were originally hundreds of martial artists, but less than 30 remained. They persevered, and some of the characteristics of ferocious beasts began to appear on their bodies and gradually stabilized. Soon, these people then walked out of the blood pool, and excitement spread across their faces. They arrived in front of the red-robed man and fell to their knees in unison, shouting with fervor, "Greetings to the Holy Lord! All rise!" The red-robed man smiled and said, "You are all lucky people who have been favored by the beast god, and have successfully passed the transmigration ceremony and possessed the body of the beast clan, so in the future when you should serve the beast clan with more sincerity, will definitely follow the Holy Lord and accomplish the great cause of overthrowing the human race." The crowd chanted in unison, "Well, all stand down." The red-robed man nodded slightly, his face showing satisfaction. And these martial artists who had just transformed and possessed the characteristics of ferocious beasts, then once again respectfully saluted, and then left the place with a face full of excitement. When they're gone, the smile on the face of this red-robed man, who was called the Holy Lord, gradually tightened and his gaze became bland as he looked at the pool of blood in front of him, first soothing himself for a moment, and then fiercely taking in a deep breath almost simultaneously. Behind him steeply emerged a solidified phantom, but a Tao-2-wig appearance, at this moment is also opened the mouth to suck violently. Next moment, a faint fluorescent light then steeply emerged from the blood pool, slowly drifting towards the mouth of the Tawu-Dharma phase. Gulp. One swallow. The Tawu-Dharma phase brightened steeply and seemed to become slightly more solid again, which caused the red-robed man to instantly show a look of satisfaction. However, immediately afterward, he couldn't help but sigh softly and murmured softly, "There are less and less martial artists with good qualifications, so down the line, when will this seat be able to completely solidify its Dharma phase?" What he cultivated was a technique that only the patriarch of the 10,000 Beasts sect could cultivate, called the Xian Tian Dharma phase diagram, which could simulate ancient ferocious beasts out of thin air, causing them to transform into the martial artist's own Dharma phase. However, if one wanted to solidify it out, one would need to continuously devour the ferocious beast's chi and blood, causing the phantom to gradually solidify and become more and more powerful. Ultimately, it could allow martial artists to possess the innate aptitude of phallic ferocious beasts, and could even be fused with each other, allowing them to metamorphose into true ferocious beasts. It was as if, for example, his Dharma phase was an ancient ferocious beast named Tawu, which could swallow the heavens and devour the earth. If he was able to solidify the Tawu Dharma phase, he would eventually be able to transform into a Tawu himself and become a ferocious ancient beast. It's just too hard to try to do that. Chapter 164, In the Body of a Man, Comparing to a God. Gathering a Dharma phase incarnation required constant devouring of ferocious beast chi and blood. For example, if he was condensing a Tawu Dharma phase, he would need to devour Tawu essence blood. But not to mention that the Tawu is an ancient beast, so far has been extinct, even if there are still surviving, but also necessarily strong. With his strength is simply impossible to get Tawu's blood and it's caught in a dead end. But it was fortunate that the founding lord of the 10,000 Beasts sect was so talented that he created another path, that is, fusing the innumerable talented roots and bones of human beings, continuously filling them within the phantom, and ultimately allowing the phantom to successfully coalesce. In a nutshell, it was to strip the human race of the essence of their bloodline and talent within their bodies, turning it into the purest energy to be devoured by the Dharma phase. For this reason, the blood pool transmutation formation was also born. Not bad. The so-called fading of the person is just an excuse. It was nothing more than making the martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect give up their human bodies and transform into ferocious beasts, and the human talents and physiques they left behind remained in the blood pool, thus being absorbed by him and filled into his own Dharma phase only. The more powerful the fierce beast phantasm was, the more picky it was. Such is the Taowu Dharma phase that he had simulated, although devouring everything that came his way, the conditions had been relaxed a lot, but the growth brought about by the unusual natural body essence was still very little, and only those with top natural body qualities would be able to bring about a huge gain. This was why their 10,000 Beasts sect was constantly plundering the human race's heavenly pride teenagers. 50 years ago, the first 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch condensed the poor Chi Dharma phase, and was beheaded by a human powerhouse right at the last minute. 20 years ago, the second patriarch condensed the Tsunami Moon Heavenly Wolf Dharma phase, and was only halfway through when he was similarly discovered by a human powerhouse, and ultimately met his demise. He was already the third patriarch. The cohesion of the Whig phantom of the Whig, so far has not been more than half. From the body of the Whig road, there is still a very long way. Instead, the human race had begun to trace them on a large scale, and in a short period of time, it had caused the 10,000 Beasts sect to lose several blood pools one after another. According to this situation, I'm afraid that there is no hope of becoming a Taowu in this lifetime. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh at the thought. After collecting his work, he was ready to leave this place and continue his cultivation. However, at this moment, an elder was suddenly seen walking over quickly, and when he saw the red-robed man, he immediately knelt on the ground and said in a hurried voice, "Sacred Lord, we have just received news that just 3 hours ago, there was a strange movement coming from the large base of Jinling. There's a disturbance at the big base in Jinling?" Hear this. For some reason, the red-robed man jumped suddenly inside, detecting a trace of uneasiness. This made him unable to resist a steep change in his face. It was a martial artist's whim, and usually signaled a crisis. In his past cultivation career, there had been a few occurrences, and each time he had relied on a whim to avoid a fatal crisis. That is why at this moment, his face changed abruptly, and he said in a sharp voice, "There is a great possibility that those human martial artists are rushing towards us. Quickly, let all the disciples all pack up and leave immediately." "No, don't pack up, leave now." With that, he urged his chi and blood power, intending to leave however. Just at this moment, a violent explosion suddenly came from outside, and the earth was shaking violently, as if the earth dragon was turning over. This underground palace he was in also began to collapse. Before he could react to the fire, he heard earth-shaking shouts resounding from outside. "Attack! The human powerhouses are killing us! Quick, block! Block!" The screams and hisses of the 10,000 Beasts sect's martial artists reached his ears. At this moment, the red-robed man's face turned pale. However, he was at least a King Realm powerhouse, and immediately made a decision. The power of chi and blood was violently stimulated, his feet violently stepped on the ground, and the whole person instantly broke through the ground and came into mid-air. However, they saw that the huge mansion had been completely reduced to rubble at this moment, with countless fires roaring in the sky and miserable screams rising and falling in the meantime. In the sky, an extremely terrifying scroll slowly unfolded, covering heaven and earth, covering the entire Beha small base, and even 100-mile radius. It was none other than the mountain and river map. "What is this? Why is there a scroll in the sky? What the hell is going on here? Is the sky falling? Mom, I want to go home." Inside the small base of North River. The moment. Countless people only felt a sudden blackness in front of their eyes, as if the great sun had been obscured, and subconsciously looked up, then they saw the mountain and river diagrams covering down. At that moment, countless people were all abuzz about it. A look of panic passed over every face. However, before they could regain their senses, they saw a figure appear in the sky, and they resided in midair before striking out a terrifying move towards the ground. Boom boom boom. A terrifyingly intense roar suddenly resounded, and the majestic might swept over, making the countless residents of the small base of the North River only feel as if the doomsday had come, and the heavenly river had collapsed, and each one of them was as if they were earthy, and their hearts and souls were terrified. They had thought that they were about to be buried under the aftermath of this terrifying power. But then it was revealed. The gigantic picture scroll that hung above their heads dropped a stream of light, forming a light shield that blocked all the aftershocks of the attack, causing them to receive no damage at all. But where there is no sheltered place, it is utterly destroyed. Take for example, the headquarters compound of the 10,000 Beasts sect. The large place was instantly razed to the ground under the united strikes of dozens of exalted masters within a radius of more than 10 miles. The area was directly sunk, and the ground was sunk for hundreds of meters. All the buildings were reduced to pieces in an instant. Countless martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect, even if they were in the ground, were all instantly subdued by the immense power, and they didn't even have the time to cry out in misery. Only some powerful 8 desolate exalted were barely able to survive this first wave of feats. But what then greeted them was an even more terrifying scene. Dozens of 8 desolate venerables flew in, each with 3 or 5 of them fighting against a one beast sect venerable, and then they were pitted against each other. The fight between the 8 wastelands exalted masters could be described as powerful, and when they raised their hands and threw their feet, they all carried a majestic power. They went up to the heavens and into the earth, and wherever they passed, the earth was sunken, mountain ranges collapsed, rivers broke off, and the earth trembled within a radius of thousands of miles for a while. The sound of explosions was endless. The red-robed man's eyes instantly turned red when he saw the scene in front of him. It's what he's been working on for 20 years. For the sake of the incarnated Taowu, the 10,000 Beasts sect, which he had managed to pull together with great difficulty. The result was a complete burial under human attack. Human martial artist, die for me. He roared, his breath soared, the yuan qi in his body boiled, and behind him there was a Taowu phantom with demonic flames that was roaring in the sky, opening its mouth to devour heaven and earth. When this Taowu Dharma appeared, between heaven and earth, steeply swept out a black gas. Wherever it passed, countless grass and trees are withered. Heaven and earth yuan qi is swallowed up. The human exalted who were fighting around them all felt a great terror coming on. All of their faces changed drastically, and they hurriedly tried to retreat. But the red-robed man was at the king realm, and at this moment, he was angry with rage, so how could he let these 8 wastelands exalted ones escape? The Taowu Dharma phase sucked violently. In the void, a huge suction force came out steeply, trying to pull the surrounding Zunis over. Seeing that these exalted ones were about to be devoured by the Taowu. Right here and now. Bold. Your opponent, it's us. A grandiose voice of the utmost magnitude resounded in an instant, spreading across the heavens and earth, reverberating within a radius of 10,000 miles. The moment the voice rang out, everyone was then horrified to see that 3 golden pillars of light suddenly appeared in the sky and rose up, tearing through the clouds and rushing into the dome of the sky. All of a sudden, the wind rose up. At times it was stormy. From time to time, the electricity flashes. This was the simultaneous outburst of the 3 cave heavenly king realm powerhouses, their strength unreservedly released, so much so that it actually affected the heavenly phenomena, making the land around them become a cave heavenly blessed land. At that time, the surrounding heaven and earth would fluctuate as the mood of the king realm powerhouse changed. When a king is angry, the winds and clouds of heaven and earth change. When the king is happy, the sky is clear and high. That's not all. The moment the 3 golden pillars of light shot up into the sky, the humans could see 3 groups of golden figures slowly pulling up, as if they were 3 great suns rising up, and eventually hanging high in the midair next. Infinite golden light suddenly burst out, spreading in an instant to a radius of 10,000 miles. Not only did it disperse all of the darkness, even the black aura spread by the Taowu Dharma phase melted away in a flash of ice and snow, completely disappearing. The moment. In the sight and pupils of countless people, the entire world, it was as if it had turned golden. Countless people stood still with frozen faces. As they looked at those 3 golden beings that were as bright as if they were world-defying deities, all of them had their mouths wide open, with shock on their faces, and were unable to come back to their senses for a long time. What did I see? Are 3 gods appearing in the sky? My God! Terrible, terrible. Ground. One ordinary person and martial artist murmured to himself, his words carrying endless shock and unbelievability. Some martial artists had even been thinking that they were in a dream world, so much so that they couldn't believe what they were seeing in front of their eyes, and went so far as to frantically slap themselves, trying to wake themselves up. No wonder he's so manic. It was really that this kind of might was so terrifying that one could not help but be in awe at the sight of it, giving birth to the idea of falling to one's knees and worshipping. Chumo was also raising his head, looking at the 3 godlike figures in the sky, his heart filled with shock. Is this the cave Heavenly King realm? No wonder it is recognized by heaven and earth, and is regarded by countless human martial artists as a divine mountain that subdues the world and protects millions of miles of mountains and rivers. It really has become so strong that it is unimaginable to be able to compare to a deity with a human body. Chummer murmured to himself. The words were full of incredulity. This was the first time he had so visually seen a powerful person in the cave Heavenly King realm strike, and that feeling of facing heaven and earth directly invaded his mind instantly. It made his mind sway, and he couldn't control himself for a while. Chapter 165 King Realm Killing, Heaven and Earth Sacrifice, Shocking Harvest. The 10,000 Beasts sect, being of the human race, but disregarding the righteousness of the race, worshipping ferocious beasts as their masters, and hunting down the young heroes of the human race, we 3 king realms have been ordered to come here to overthrow them. The grandiose and extreme voice deeply resounded once again, like a thunderclap, resounding between heaven and earth the moment the words fell. The 3 great powers of the cave Heavenly King realm then brazenly came out, instantly cutting through the sky and descending into time like a great sun, arriving in front of the red-robed man. In the meantime, a strong and extremely terrifying pressure also erupted from all of their bodies, like a volcano erupting and the sea churning, with infinite might pouring out, as if even the earth could be suppressed. Ground. Hundreds of thousands of beings listened to this voice that was like a god pronouncing judgment, and they all awoke abruptly. It turned out that these 3 godlike existences were actually the kings of their human race, suppressing the human race rebels. Instantaneous. The fear in his heart dissipated in an instant and was replaced by endless awe and reverence. The king of the people. It holds supremacy in the heart of every human being. Whenever it is mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind is a deity that suppresses all turmoil, a divine mountain that stands on top of the sky. They have risen since the time of the great change of heaven and earth, fought with ferocious beasts, threw their heads and spilled their blood, fought for the survival space for the human race, and blessed millions of people. Destroy the 10,000 Beasts sect. Go Kings! Hundreds of thousands of people secretly shouted in their hearts, cheering for the king of the human race. Their eyes were filled with awe and excitement. It's simply delusional to want to kill me with just the 3 of you. Die for me. The strength of the red-robed man was also astonishing, and at this moment, facing the 3 kings, the Bright Light King, the Songhai King, and the Thousand Leaves King, he was actually unafraid, and his body directly rushed over without retreating halfway. The Tawu Dharma phase, behind him, opened its mouth wide, and a terrifying aura rose up. The golden light emanating from the 3 kings could not even be suppressed. What a terrifying phantasm! I think it should be an extremely powerful martial art. Far away, Chumo looked at the terrifying might emanating from the huge Tawu phantom behind the patriarch of the 10,000 Beasts sect. On the other hand, the other 3 kings were slightly weaker in terms of individual strength alone, and at this moment, they also suddenly fell into a disadvantage. But they quickly responded as well. Only to see the Bright Light King suddenly take out a precious mirror that looked no more than 3 inches in size, with an ancient and plain appearance. But when the red-robed man saw it, his face immediately changed greatly, and the whole person even drew out without hesitation. Arcane light mirror? How could you have such a treasure? The red-robed man yelled. The Bright Light King didn't say anything, just concentrating on imperializing the precious mirror. only to see that the precious mirror above constantly projected a bright arcane light. Wherever it passed, Tawu Dharma phase or some fear, actually subconsciously dodge retreat. This Xianguang realm, which was refined from an extremely precious heaven and earth aurora, was extremely restraining to evil martial arts techniques and feats, and was extremely powerful. The bright light king possessed the talent of light attribute, and since becoming a king realm powerhouse, he had exhausted all his accumulations and spent decades to sacrifice such a magic treasure with infinite power. The moment when the red-robed man realized that his proud Tawu Dharma phase was difficult to be effective, his heart had already developed the intention to leave. Just as he had just wanted to pull out and leave, he saw the thousand-leaf king also displaying his mastery, a piece of fallen leaves flying, enveloping 1,000 miles, invisibly combining into a large formation, completely enveloping the red-robed man in it. No matter how much he crashed to the left and to the right, it was difficult for him to escape for a while. As for the Songhai king, he even raised his hands and threw his feet, and there was infinite water vapor steaming, making the air pressure in the surrounding sky become thick, weakening the strength of the red-robed man. This was the true strength of their king realm. There is a heaven and earth enchantment between his hands and feet, and the place where he is located is a heavenly paradise. And the means of attack that they had performed was equivalent to their own cave heaven. The power can be increased tremendously. Under the combined attack of the three of them, although the red-robed man roared angrily, there was nothing he could do but block left and right. Although the red-robed man fell into a disadvantage. But after all, it was a king realm powerhouse, even if the three of them, the Songhai king, joined forces, but in the end, the difference in strength between each other was not too great, and if they wanted to take him down, if they themselves didn't want to have any accidents, then they could only be careful and careful again. It's just that way. It would take a long battle to subdue it. At this point, the fight between the exalted had already ended, and the martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect were barely able to put up any resistance under the attack of dozens of exalted, and all of them were wiped out. That was why all the exalted ones then began to observe the fight between the kings. Sure. They're all far away. After all, it was a battle between powerful people of the Seal King realm, and it wasn't good for them to get involved in it, and if they were not careful and were used as a breakthrough instead, it would be a wrongful mistake. It would be more practical to keep an eye on it from a distance to prevent it from escaping. It was just as well that he could also take the opportunity to observe the king's intent, and perhaps gain some insights from it. Chimo was thinking the same thing. He sat cross-legged in midair and watched the four kings fight as thunderous rumblings pressed down from the sky, as if a once-in-a-thousand-years heavy rainstorm was about to cover this heaven and earth. As he watched, a wave of emotion grew in his heart. This is the cave heavenly king realm. Unconsciously, Chuemo muttered out, that kind of envy and admiration revealed. Soon, though, he gathered up his distractions. Although the king realm was strong, however, he believed that it wouldn't be long before he himself could also go to this realm, and even go farther. Time passes quietly. The four kings killed all the way from the earth to the sky and back again. Wherever it passed, the void trembled, the earth trembled, the wind and clouds whistled, the electricity flashed and thundered, countless Chinese lights made a big fuss, the terrifying breath was amazing, the endless might poured down, and within tens of thousands of miles of the area, it was razed to the ground without realizing it. Several days had already passed. At this point, the Tawu Dharma phase, which was still quite flaming, had already shown signs of withering. And the aura of the three human kings was still at the top. Up to this point, even Chimo could see that. If not expected, the patriarch of the 10,000 Beasts sect should have been unable to escape. But this person's method is truly extremely terrifying. His cultivation is actually still a step behind compared to the three human kings, but the reason why he was able to hold on for such a long time is because of the phantom. If I can gain access to this martial art. Chumo's gathering technique was still half a month away from being refreshed. And looking at the situation in front of them, if the three kings wanted to take down the 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch, it was estimated that it would take at least a small month. Perhaps. Thinking of this, Chumo's breathing steeply lagged. A flash of essence also instantly appeared in his eyes. Another half a month passed. Chumam's gathering has been refreshed. And at this time, the power of the Taowu Dharma phase was finally diminished to the extreme, and between heaven and earth, only the power of the three human kings, King Mingguang, King Songhai, and King Thousand Leaves, still remained to come and go across the world. Their moves became swifter and swifter, and every time they struck, they might have decapitated the powerful 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch in front of them. Up to this point, including Chu Mo, dozens of Zunis couldn't help but get excited in unison. It won't be long before they have to witness a strong person of the cave Heavenly King realm fall in front of their eyes. Fruity after another 2 days, the three kings felt that the time had come, so they began to perform their own mastery and began the final stage of their attack on the red-robed man. At this moment, the red-robed man was already weak to the extreme. In the face of such a mighty attack, there was simply no way to stop it anymore. A moment later, only a loud boom could be heard. As if accumulating to the extreme, has been floating to the extreme Taowu phantom suddenly condensed, and then a loud bang, as if the dome of the sky is also cracked for the general, openly collapsed down. It was as if all the voices, in that moment, had run out of steam. Heaven and earth were silent. It was as if the extremes of things were reversed, or as if the chi of all things had been exhausted, and the air in the area of 10,000 miles around was suppressed to the extreme, so dull that it was almost suffocating. I don't know how much time has passed. Suddenly, the wind was fierce, accompanied by pouring rain that crashed down. The rain, which was red in color. It was actually like blood. Coupled with this whistling gale, as well as the wildly flashing thunder, it was as if the heavens and earth were crying over it, as if it was being sacrificed. A tribute to the fall of a king. A mournful mood lingered in all directions, enveloping everyone. But at this moment, on the faces of all the human venerables, including Chu Mo, instead of having any empathetic grief, they all couldn't help but have a touch of joy emerge on their faces. 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch, fallen. A body, falling from the sky. The figures of the three kings, on the other hand, appeared steeply in people's line of sight. After nearly a month of fighting, although they had the upper hand, they were all in bad shape at the moment, and their bodies looked wretched. None of this could hide the relief and exhilaration that spread across their faces. A king realm powerhouse was killed by them head-on. Even though it was three people joining forces, it also allowed each of them to gain great benefits. Smoke disappears, clouds disperse. The wind stops, the rain stops. All the dust has settled. Everyone gathered around the three kings and expressed their congratulations with smiles on their faces, while Chu Mo was flashing and arrived in front of the corpse of this 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch. It only lingered for a few seconds and then drew away. It was a quick maneuver, so no one noticed. Chu Mo returned to the crowd, the same face full of smiles to the three kings, to express congratulations. Everyone does not know, under the smile on Chu Mo's face, what is hidden is, but suppressed to the extreme surprise. If there weren't so many exalted and three kings in this place, I'm afraid he could have laughed out loud. Cover. The harvest he had gathered was too great. It was so big that it was even far beyond Chumo's imagination. Chapter 166, The Upanishad of Wood, a truly great harvest. With the death of the 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch, the siege came to a complete end. Then it was time to start cleaning up the battlefield. Of course, there was actually nothing left to clean up, because the mansions of the 10,000 Beasts sect had all been razed to the ground under the bombardment of dozens of exalted masters, and even the many 10,000 Beasts sect martial practitioners, their dead bodies had all been broken into pieces. So more appropriately, they were raiding the resources of the 10,000 Beasts sect. The buildings of the 10,000 Beasts sect that were built underground had collapsed and buried with the depression of the earth, but it was difficult to defeat the many venerable masters. Under the mental inspection, all of them were soon unearthed. Anyway, some hustle. By the time night fell, they were finally all packed up, and only then did they board the airship and begin to evacuate. A few hours later, the ship returned to the large base in Jinling. The three kings were busy reporting up the matter of the annihilation of the 10,000 Beasts sect, while the many Zunas took the opportunity to gossip, communicate, and even form a private exchange session. As for Chu Mo, he did not participate, but returned to his villa at the first opportunity and began to shut down. In the middle of the quiet room, Chu Mo sat cross-legged, his eyes gazing at the seeming nothingness in front of him. But in reality, only he could see that there were actually several items in front of him. For one thing, the exterior appeared to be a green orb that contained majestic vitality. It was clearly the very talent that Chu Mo had collected from the red-robed man. A transcendent level would attribute talent. May I ask if it's fused? The eyes gaze up and the hints come to the surface. Fusion. Without the slightest hesitation, Chu Mo directly opened his mouth. Boom. The green ball of light merged into Chu Mo's mind, and a wave of pain steeply surfaced from all parts of his body, flowing into his limbs and bones, accompanied by a wave of mysterious substances that began to slowly transform his body. Although it was a fusion of transcendent-level talents, this caused much less pain for Chu Mo, who had already experienced 2 Morning Star-level talent fusions. After a few moments, the pain fell like a tidal wave. Chumhum was the first to check his information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendent Level Indestructible Thunder Body, Transcendent Level Supreme Blade Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Blade Cultivation Talent, Morning Star Level Wind Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Wood Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Higher Spatial Attribute, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Dark Attribute Talent, Medium Metallic Attribute. The Transcendent Level Would Attribute Talent still granted him active healing and passive recovery. No new special abilities have emerged. The difference is only that the healing and recovery is enhanced. Try to see how it works. Chu Mo took out the autumn killing blade and used all his strength to melt a small opening in his arm. But immediately after, before Chu Mo could move the long knife away, he saw the wound begin to slowly recover, and in the blink of an eye, it was completely restored as before. Spin. Chu Mo once again melted open an opening again, and this time he even deliberately attached some blade chi to the wound. This time, the passive recovery effect is much slower. But if you look closely, you can still see that the wound is slowly closing. Chu Mo subconsciously urged his Yuan Qi to proactively heal the wound, only to see that in less than a breath, the blade qi attached to the wound was expelled, and then it was completely closed. When the palm of his hand touched it, he realized that the skin was smooth and delicate, and he could not see any traces of wounds at all. What a strong healing effect! There was some surprise in Chu Mo's heart. No doubt about it. With the transcendent level would attribute talent, it meant that Chu Mo's ability to preserve his life was even stronger, and as long as he didn't encounter a fatal wound, it would be almost difficult to die. For example, the red-robed man, it was clear that all of his techniques were restrained, but he still fought with the three kings for nearly a month before completely losing the reason for this. It was because of the transcendent grade would attribute talent that allowed him to not have to fear injuries, thus achieving the effect of a long-lasting battle. Second item. On the other hand, it was a mysterious green rune, which contained pure life energy, and when one gazed at it, one could feel a heaven and earth supremacy unfolding before one's eyes. It's the wooden Upanishad. The fundamentals that allowed the red-robed man to advance to the Seal King realm were likewise collected by Chu Mo. May I ask if it's fused? The prompt resurfaced. Chu Mo did not hesitate to absorb it. Shasta. This mass of green runes then entered Chu Mo's body and then escaped, turning into a stream of pure mysterious energy that transformed his body. Trummer could feel it. The essence of one's life was rising, and one's longevity was rising with it. It took a few moments for it to sink in completely. That was when Chu Mo realized that his lifespan had increased by at least a third, making his lifespan today 1,000 years. Beyond that, after absorbing it, it also made my comprehension of the wood attribute Upanishad reach 20%. How difficult it was to comprehend the Upanishads. And this 20% of the Upanishad was the result of this red-robed man's decades of comprehension after he stepped into the king realm. But now, it was all done for Chumo. No doubt about it. Just a transcendent level would attribute talent, and 20% of the Upanishad already made Chumo feel that he had gained a lot. Subsequently, he dropped his gaze to the last few items. 5 books in all. According to Chumo's previous experience, these 5 books were all martial arts. 2 of them showed a light blue glow, and they were clearly bronze-grade martial arts. There were also 2 books that emitted a surging white light, which were silver-grade martial arts to this day. As far as Chumo was concerned, bronze-level martial arts and silver-level martial arts had already failed to catch his eye, and only gold-level martial arts could slightly make him raise some interest. Thus these 4 martial arts, Chumo only paid a little attention to them and immediately absorbed them into his mind. The last one, on the other hand, emitted a purple luster, and at a cursory glance, one could feel a vastness coming from it. It was no better than the Great Diffusion Divine Light Mysterious Codex that Chumo had obtained back then. This must be an extremely profound martial art. With this thought in his heart, Chumo did not hesitate for a second and directly slapped it towards his head. The next instant, the entire book then shattered open, turning into a mysterious purple rune that surged into the mind. And with that, all the subtle essence about this martial art was learned by Chumo Xian Dharma diagram. If you learn this technique, you can rely on the martial artist's visualization to condense a phantom out of thin air, thus increasing the martial artist's battle power. After understanding the essence of this Gongfu, Chumo was immediately shocked. You should know that the martial artist's visualization only works on the spiritual level, which is equivalent to not existing, but this technique can be transformed from virtual to real, condensing the phantom, and even when cultivated to the depths of the essence, the phantom's true body can also be manifested. What's that supposed to mean? In a nutshell, it's as if you fantasize that there is something in this heaven and earth, and it doesn't exist originally, but this Gong method can condense the phantom of what you fantasize, and then continuously perfect it, so that eventually it can truly appear in this world. If the description of this technique is true, then the martial artist who created this technique in the first place must have a heavenly cultivation, and even in Chumo's mind, I am afraid that compared to that great diffusion godly monarch, it is estimated that it is not much better. Great Hall. This is the real big catch. A flash of excitement appeared in Chumo's eyes. Subsequently, he also understood the reason why the 10,000 Beasts sect was looking around for human celestial pride. It comes down to this. However, it was the patriarch of the 10,000 Beasts sect who wanted to borrow the talented roots of the heaven's pride so that he could enrich his own Dharma phase. Chumo revealed a dazed look. He had already grasped all of the essence of this technique, so he naturally knew what path the phantom that the sect leader of the 10,000 Beasts sect had condensed was following. With Chumo's insight, he could easily detect that the path the 10,000 Beasts sect had taken was actually crooked. The method of substitution is certainly feasible, but this is not the right way after all. For example, the Tao Dharma phase condensed by the red-robed man, even if he eventually materialized it, it only fell short, and what was condensed was only a weakened version of the true body of the Dharma phase. But Trummer could understand. After all, there was no longer any trace of Tao in this world, and even if there was still, with his cultivation, he would not be able to obtain the essence blood of Tao. But if I can condense the phantom, but I don't need the alternative method at all. Thinking of this, a flash of radiance suddenly appeared in Chumo's eyes. To know. He had a real 3-legged golden crow by his side. As a generation of demon emperors, the 3-legged golden crow dominates the big sun star, not only the strength of the terrifying incomparable, and the roots of the deep incomparable, such as Tao, Por Chi, and other ancient beasts, certainly strong and unparalleled, but in the ancient times, also need to prostrate in the big sun golden crow's sun under the golden sun, bowing down to. There is no comparison between the two. And Trummer. It was entirely possible to condense the golden crow Dharma phase and then continuously fill it with the little crow's essence blood. In time it might be possible to condense a true golden crow Dharma phase, and then manifest the true body of the golden crow, controlling the golden flame of the sun, striking across the sky and the earth, invincible. The thought of that scene. Even Chu Mo couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cool air at this moment, a touch of yearning appearing in his eyes. This Xian heavenly Dharma phase diagram is simply customized for me. A moment later, he came back to his senses. The many subtleties about the Xian heavenly Dharma diagram still flowed endlessly in his mind, which caused Chu Mo to not be able to help but sigh out with emotion. Spin. He didn't hesitate for a second. Straight away, he summoned Little Crow. In an instant, the entire room was filled with a scorching temperature, and the formations that were set up within the quiet room all shook as a result, apparently somewhat difficult to withstand and about to shatter. Seeing this scene, Chu Mo hurriedly told Little Crow to collect his aura. He then told Little Crow about his idea of obtaining a drop of essence blood. Upon learning of this matter, Xiao Wu agreed straight away without saying a word. Will taking out your essence blood affect your foundation? Chu Mo asked with some uneasiness. There will be no repercussions. It just takes a while to recover, and if there are heavenly treasures, it can also speed up the recovery. Crow replied. Only after receiving this answer did Chu Mo feel completely at ease. Chapter 167, Condensing the Great Sun Golden Crow Dharma Phase. A drop of golden blood, suspended in midair. When it appeared, the entire house seemed to be in the middle of a volcano, with hot temperatures coming in bursts, and a terrifying energy could be felt fluctuating as the eyes gazed up. It was clearly the essence blood of the three-legged golden crow. When the drop of essence blood was forced out, the breath of the little crow instantly shriveled up, but fortunately it didn't cause any damage to the foundation, so Chu Mo immediately put it into the spirit beast pouch, and took out some heavenly materials for it to swallow, and recuperated properly. Only after this was done did Chu Mo begin to focus his gaze on the golden crow essence blood. Have to say, it is truly worthy of the three-legged golden crow. Just a single drop of essence blood made Chu Mo feel a great terror and pure energy. No doubt about it. If this drop of blood were to be dripped into the river, with the hint of solar golden flame contained within the essence blood, it was estimated that it would be able to incinerate an entire large river. The great sun golden crow, holding the sun's golden flame, removing all darkness to illuminate all things, and benefiting all living beings in the world, for the sun's sect, for the stars' lord, for a generation of demon emperors, the king of the world. If you want to coalesce the Dharma phase, this drop of essence blood alone is not enough. And it needs to be divine. The divinity of the golden crow of the great sun. Chummer murmured. If there is no divinity, even if it is manifested, it is only a skin. Just like the 10,000 Beast Sect patriarch, the red-robed man condensed the wig phantom of the Taowu, which appeared to be amazingly powerful with demonic flames, but in the final analysis, it was more like a demonic creature rather than a demon god Taowu. It's nothing more than borrowing the appearance and shape of a Taowu. Only when essence, Qi, and God are united do they possess true power. And today, he has all of them. It can be said that everything is ready, and all we need is an east wind. One thought to this, Chu Mo immediately swallowed this drop of essence blood without hesitation, and in an instant, a majestic force immediately exploded within his body, a terrifying solar golden flame, wrapped in infinite temperature, as if it was going to incinerate his body. Don't dare to be the slightest bit slow. Chu Mo immediately revolved the Xian heavenly Dharma phase diagram and began to visualize the golden crow Dharma phase according to the requirements of the Gong method. He slowly sketched out the image through his own observation of the little crow, in addition to supplementing it with the depiction of the three-legged golden crow in the legend and myth. Unconsciously, everything seemed to disappear from Chu Mo's world. All of his senses were lost. There seemed to be some kind of magical power that pulled his spirit into a special space without a single drop, leaving only a shell outside in Chu Mo's spirit world. All he could see was the endless stars unfolding before his eyes. These stars, at first glance, seemed to be motionless and dead silent, but a closer look, also seems to be in accordance with some kind of subtle law constantly running. When Chu Mo's spirit just entered this place, The original calm stars, like suddenly pouring a bucket of water into a pot of already hot frying pan, boiling up in an instant. A terrifying aura rose steeply from each star. Or it is as hot as fire, seemingly capable of burning the sky and devouring the earth. Or so cold that it seems to freeze the soul. Or gentle and calm as if the sun was shining. Violent, bloodthirsty, frenzied. All kinds of breaths, to name a few. He counted them carefully. It was found that these stars, no more, no less, there were 365 of them, secretly matching the number of stars and buckets in the circumference of the sky above each star. A roar was also vaguely heard, and a magnificent body could be vaguely seen roaring up to the sky. Each of these stars seems to contain a trace of the aura of an ancient ferocious beast. No wonder it's called the Shantian Dharma diagram. It turns out that one is actually able to be pulled into the underworld of the spirit world, helping the martial artist to perform the ancient fierce beast's visualization. Chumo thought darkly. But these are not the phantoms I want. He momentarily averted his gaze from above these stars, and then raised his eyes to place an extended bed on the top of hundreds of stars, a great sun hanging above them. Compared to other stars, this great sun was just a great sun that had been diffused, and there was no aura of a ferocious beast coming from it. When you look around, you can feel ordinary and empty. But I'm coming. With his murmur. In an instant, 10,000 feet of golden light steeply appeared in this world, and a ray of radiant golden flame of the sun surfaced and burned for no reason, instantly sweeping through the entire world. In the midst of that sun's golden flame, a golden crow silhouette leisurely spread its wings as if it was about to lift its wings and fly. Its movements were not fast, and even seemed slow, but every move was filled with the divine charm of a Taiku demon emperor dominating the heavens and earth, as if it was going to suppress the heavens and earth, and subdue all things. This condescending stance instantly set off the entire star world. Each of these ferocious beasts of theirs was an existence that had dominated in the ancient times, strong enough to strike across the heavens and the earth, and they defied each other. How can a mere outsider try to suppress everything and subdue everything in the world? Delusional. It's too. In an instant, above each star, there were sounds of dragons and tigers, phoenixes, and apes, which were still relatively low at first, but gradually became higher and higher, and eventually became deafening. With the sound of the voice. Hundreds of ancient ferocious beasts that presented various images. Images of divine beasts such as the poor Chi, white zephyr, Taowu, flying lion, true dragon, and fire phoenix all emerged from the stars, raising their heads and roaring, seemingly revealing their majesty. But just then. Phew! Suddenly, without warning, a crow's cry rang in his ears. The voice was long and distant, as if it had traveled through time and space, coming from the long-ago barbarians. Immediately, a mass of black flames coalesced behind Chumo's back, as if reborn in fire, and as if conceived in fire. A huge flying bird covered in black feathers, with crimson eyes, 3 imaginary feet, and surrounded by black flames appeared. In the meantime, an unyielding and proud intent was born leisurely, sweeping steeply from this world, completely covering the entire star world in an instant. What a breath of fresh air this is! Arrogant to the limit of dominance, unyielding to the apex of pride. There is even a generation of heaven to carry out punishment, the great day across the sky, exposure to the earth, cool and merciless, extermination of all living things in heaven and earth, overriding everything above. All living things are ants' breath, come to the face trance. At this moment, Chumo seemed to have transformed into an ancient demon emperor, and in his heart, he had a majestic hegemony that regarded the world's living beings as nothing, the greatness of heaven and earth as illusory, and looked at the world as if everything was a molehill. This kind of temperament is really hard to allow words to describe. Even Chumo was completely shocked by such an aura at this moment. For a moment, his jaw dropped and he froze in his tracks. As for those ferocious beasts on the astral bucket of the heavens, they were even more shocked by such an aura, and the suppression that originated from their bloodline caused the unruly and arrogance in them to instantly dissipate. In its place was a wave of fear and trembling. It's like a subject facing an emperor, a child or grandchild facing an elder. Don't dare to overstep your bounds, don't dare to go out of your way in the slightest. Like walking on thin ice. Afraid of being noticed for their earlier arrogance and thus time to settle scores. But with the great son Golden Crow's condescension, he also didn't even bother to pay attention. However, a crow cried, and the sound resounded through the clouds, while at the same time, terrifying solar golden flames swept across the sky. Spin. With a single lift of its wings, the great sun Golden Crow flew above the great sun of the star world. The moment it entered the great sun, hundreds of stars in this star world glittered and flowed with a brilliant luster, and the phantoms of hundreds of ancient great demons let out a long cry in unison, as if they were bowing down. Phew. It's hard to know how long it's been. Chumhum came back to his senses. The eyes were confused at first, then gradually regained their sparkle, but then he stood up and his mind moved. At that moment, a crow's cry suddenly resounded in the room, and endless golden light sprinkled down like a great sun, and a majestic and supreme phantom appeared behind him. The Golden Crow danced, and the great day shone, as if it were the sun, falling down to the mortal world. Inside the large room, it was instantly as bright as day, and the golden flames were full, wanting to escape. Hershey's. The Golden Crow of the Great Sun. Finally. Condensed the Golden Crow Dharma phase. Looking at the Golden Crow lifting its wings, filled with an infinite greatness of divinity, Chumo could not help but reveal a touch of radiant brightness in his eyes. Although this Golden Crow phantom is still very illusory, but already has a not bad power, such as the flame that lingers on the side of the Golden Crow at the moment, do not look weak and inconspicuous, but it is the projection of the sun's golden flame. Even though it was only a projection, it possessed some of the true power of the sun gold flame. Once the flame swept through, even if an 8 desolate exalt touched a trace of it, he would definitely die. More importantly, this Golden Crow phantasm and Chumo's souls were linked together, their bloodlines connected, just like his innate divine ability. This also means Chumo could completely merge the Dharma phase with himself in the future, thus allowing him to gain, and his strength would become even more terrifying with it. Since then, the Golden Crow phantasm then becomes another one of my cards. In the future, we only need to slowly harbor it, betting on it from time to time with little crow's blood, and then we can make it gradually solidify. In time, perhaps a true great sun Golden Crow true body can be condensed. Chummer thought softened with a thought, the phantom of the three-legged Golden Crow condensed into a ball of black light and disappeared into his mind. Do it all. He finally stifled a long exhale. This annihilation of the 10,000 Beasts sect was truly an extraordinary harvest for Chumo. Transcendent level would attribute talent was just that. 20% of the Wood Upanishad was enough to save him at least several years of enlightenment. As for the Shantian Dharma phase diagram, in Chumo's mind, it was a top-notch technique that was not inferior to the Great Diffusion Divine Light secret code. This trip is not a waste. Chummer opened his mouth. Counting the days, he realized that he had spent 3 days in condensing his Dharma phase, so they walked out of the quiet room. At this moment, it was just early morning outside, the sun was rising in the east, casting out thousands of rays of light, shining on the human body, warm. Just got a little bit of sun. Chumo then received a message from Wind Chaser, so with a single movement of his body, he flew towards Tianji Pavilion. Chapter 168 Young Wei casts the foundation of the Tao, worthy of being the favored child of heaven and earth. Wind Chaser, greetings to the pavilion master. Inside the Tianji Pavilion, Chumo had just arrived in the middle of the main hall when Chasing the Wind came in a hurry and made a big bow. There is no need to be polite. Earlier, you sent me a message saying that there was a change in Liu Wei's body, but I don't know what's going on. Chummer inquired. Earlier, Chasing Wind sent him a message saying that there was a strange movement in Liu Wei's place of seclusion, but the specifics of how were unknown words. Chasing the Wind couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh and said, the subordinate also doesn't know, it just feels that the place where she is in seclusion, actually from time to time will come from a deep and vast mysterious aura. Elder Suchuan can't understand it, the subordinate is afraid that there will be a problem, So this is why I asked the pavilion master to come and check it out in person. Mysterious breath? Chummer froze. Just wanted to say something. But at that moment, he suddenly sensed something, and couldn't help but sweep his vision and instantly fixate on a certain place. A majestic force came from a cultivation quiet room. It seems that some kind of power is reviving and awakening. Pavilion master, that's the scent. Wind Chaser said in a hurry. Chuemo did not speak, he felt the breath, and his face unconsciously revealed a touch of gravity, and after a moment's thought, he said, I'll go observe for a moment or two, and you and let all the many disciples stay away from it, don't get close to it. When Chasing Wind heard this, he immediately nodded his head, and then began to call for the evacuation of his many disciples. As for Trummer, instead, he came straight to the side of this cultivation quiet room. The closer he got, the more he could feel a deep and vast aura with a thick and heavy pressure coming over him. It made even Chuemo feel some pressure for a moment. It certainly wasn't an intimidation of strength. Rather, it stems from the suppression of the bloodline, as if he is facing an existence of high status, one cannot help but subconsciously want to worship. But with a slight movement of Chumo's mind, an aura belonging to the great sun Golden Crow escaped. In the meantime, all the pressure that was originally lingering around the body dissipated. It was just that the gravity on Chumo's face still hadn't dissipated. Such an aura, coming from his disciple, naturally caused Chuemo to be a bit cautious and careful. He then escaped his spiritual energy and penetrated the defense formation of the cultivation meditation room. Moment. The situation within the quiet room was also revealed to Chuemo. And upon seeing the situation within it, Chumo's pupils suddenly shrank. In the middle of the quiet room, Liyue was sitting cross-legged with her eyes tightly closed. And in her chest cavity, a faint seven-colored rainbow light was emanating, and the spatial perception ability allowed Chuemo to clearly see that this light actually originated from the glazed jade bone in Liyue's body. The moment this glazed jade bone seemed to have come to life, actually carrying a huge vitality. This is in forging the foundation of the Tao? Chuemo couldn't help but be a bit shocked. How long has it been since Liyue turned 15 and could start cultivating? Surprisingly, she had already stepped into the martial master realm from the martial artist realm, and then climbed all the way up to the peak of the martial master realm, thus beginning to draw in her spirit to build her foundation, preparing to step into the sovereign master realm. Such a cultivation speed is simply appalling. However, that's not all. Just as Chuemo was still shaken by it. Hostile. Suddenly, a high-pitched phoenix sound resounded, clear and loud, seemingly coming from the distant past, carrying a pale and ancient, noble and elegant aura. It goes up to the clouds and down to the 9 ghosts. When the sound came above Liyue's head, there was suddenly a divine beast shadow spreading its wings. That's a heavenly phoenix. The moment. This heavenly phoenix is full of colorful light, and when its feathered wings are waved, it brings up 10,000 paths of haze, and 1,000 streaks of auspicious colors. The void even gave birth to golden lotuses, and 9 colored rainbow bridges were built. A heavenly flower fell down, carrying a strange fragrance to the nose, bright and prosperous. In an instant, the entire Tianji pavilion was illuminated with bright light. It was even clearly visible from other places within the large base in Jinling. And such a scene. It also caused the many martial artists within the Tianji pavilion to freeze, completely unsure of what was happening. More even. At this moment, within the large base of Jinling, there were also dozens of breaths rising up to the sky, which were also mixed with 3 golden lights rising up like a great sun. It was clearly the venerable lords of the other large bases that were still stationed within the Jinling large base and had yet to leave, as well as the 3 kings at this very moment. They all fixed their eyes on it. No. It cannot be discovered by outsiders that this vision was triggered by Liyue. Chumo's heart tightened, then he directly moved his mind, and the 365 blade orifices around his body trembled in unison, and in an instant, the sound of the exorbitant blade roar boomed. In the meantime, a terrifying saber intent swept out, forming an extremely brilliant pike that shot straight up into the sky. When the breath appeared, the aura of the heavenly phoenix shadow also lagged, and was then covered by the blade intent. And those gazes that gazed over, suddenly sensing such a terrifying blade intent, all subconsciously narrowed their eyes, and then retracted the spiritual energy they had spread out. They all sensed that this blade intent came from Chu-mo, its venerable Chu cultivating? I guess I should have practiced some kind of mastery. Better not pry. Strong people cultivated and were most wary of others prying, so after sensing Chu-mo's aura, they withdrew their gazes. Lest he be misunderstood by Chu-mo, it would be bad if he was held a grudge at that time. As for those 3 kings, at this moment, they all nodded to Chu-mo from afar, and then they landed their forms, no longer paying attention to this place. Obviously, he was also giving Chu-mo a thin face. Seeing this scene, Chu-mo couldn't help but let out a light sigh of relief. Then he immediately transmitted a voice to Chasing Wind, telling him to open the Tianji Pavilion's grand formation and collect the aura. The latter did not dare to hesitate. Immediately, the grand formation was turned on. Along with the birth of a light shield like a water curtain, the entire Tianji Pavilion was completely covered up, and unless a strong person broke through with their spiritual power, they would not be able to probe into the situation inside glazed jade bone. Heavenly Phoenix Shadow. What the hell is going on here? Retracting all of his blade intent, Chu-mo once again bet his gaze on the quiet room, doubts arising in his heart. He's not sure. Why did 2 visions appear within Liu Wei's body? Murphy. There's even another chance inside her? This thought suddenly surfaced in Chu-mo's mind. Just as he was thinking this, the moment all the heaven and earth visions began to gradually converge, and Liu Wei's breath was gradually smoothing out. Trummer looked at it. Finding out that she had successfully forged a flawless Dao foundation, and that there were no other abnormalities, this made Chu-mo feel slightly more at ease. Then the spiritual power sent a voice over, telling Liu Wei to come to the Pavilion Master's Hall once her chi calmed down, so she could ask what exactly was going on in the middle of the quiet room. Liu Wei sat, cross-legged in it, her face calm, her body radiating a solemn aura. Having just forged a flawless Dao foundation caused her to emanate a strong aura fluctuation. And on top of that, there was still a whiff of something else lingering. The soul of the heavenly phoenix. Liu Wei murmured to herself. This was another special kind of chance that she had accidentally awakened when she used the glazed jade bone in her body to forge a flawless Dao foundation. It's not the physique, it's not the talent. Rather, it was her soul. All people have only one soul, but she has more than others, one soul. Just when she was planning to have some fine sensations. The moment. I see that you have already forged a flawless Dao foundation, so first calm your cultivation and then come to me. The master's voice resounded in his ears words. Liu Wei nodded. Even though he knew that his master was not around, he still showed a respectful look on his face and said, "Many thanks, I'll be right over." A few moments later, Liu Wei stabilized her realm, then she walked out of the quiet room and headed towards the direction where her master was. At this moment, she was extremely excited. Not long ago, she was also the first lady of the Li family, highly favored by the family. However, in one night, the family was destroyed and he had to run for his life with his only brother. By that time she was on the verge of extinction. It was Chu-mo who suddenly appeared and saved her. And she was taken under her care as a disciple. It allowed her to forge a perfect Dao foundation, awakening her unparalleled talent and becoming a supreme talent. It was like a new life for her. Coming outside the great hall, she seemed to be able to see the man dressed in black through the door from that day when she was in a coma. Her master saved her. This figure, then, had been deeply reflected in her mind. To this day, it's even more like a soul imprint, deep and constant. If it wasn't for Master's hand in rescuing me, how could I be in the situation I'm in today? from now on. Be sure to cultivate well and never fail your master's expectations. And the 10,000 Beasts sect. In time. With this thought in her mind, her hands, which were hanging down, also unconsciously clenched secretly. Greetings, Master. Li Yue came in front of Chu Mo and respectfully saluted. Chu Mo carefully sized up Li Yue and found that although the breath in the latter's body was calming down, it carried a pure and thick weight, revealing the image of a solid foundation, which made Chu Mo nod with satisfaction. Not bad. It seems that you have successfully forged a flawless Dao foundation, so you can proceed to step into the realm of the Sovereign Master next. Chummer said. All thanks to Master's cultivation, disciple is grateful. Li Yue said respectfully. Upon hearing this, Chu Mo smiled and then gave 2 more words of encouragement before he opened his mouth to ask, by the way, earlier when I saw you casting the immaculate Dao foundation, a heavenly phoenix silhouette also sprang up above your head, but I don't know what the situation was. Li Yue didn't hide it, and directly told the truth. Born with 2 souls, accompanied by a heavenly phoenix? After hearing Li Yue's reply, Chu Mo immediately couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cool air while waiting. He had made quite a few guesses in his mind, but he hadn't thought that it was such a reason no matter what. It's just unbelievable. To know. Any martial artist who could have a similar kind of chance in his body would already be considered to be at the top of his qualifications, enough to be called heaven's pride. But in Li Yue's body, there were actually 2 kinds. One time. Chu Mo actually didn't know what to say. A full moment later. It took him a moment to come back to his senses and let out an exclamation. Truly worthy of being the favorite of heaven and earth. Chapter 169, Everything is for the Master, the treasure of accelerated cultivation. Subsequently, Chu Mo conducted another Q, a session for the difficulties Li Yue had created in her cultivation for half an hour before stopping. Many thanks to Master for teaching me, I am grateful. Li Yue only felt that it was very rewarding, and couldn't help but say with a heart full of gratitude. No harm done. Chu Mo waved his hand and said without much care. Seeing that Chu Mo had no other orders, Li Yue intended to take her leave. Seeing that she was about to leave, Chu Mo suddenly thought of it, and couldn't help but say, right, I forgot to tell you one thing. This period of time for the teacher to go out, is to follow the strong people of the human race to overthrow the 10,000 Beasts sect. Just a few days ago, the headquarters of the 10,000 Beasts sect has been annihilated by us, and all of the 10,000 Beasts sect martial practitioners have also been decimated. The words came out. Li Yue immediately froze in place. A flash of disbelief also appeared steeply on his face, seemingly in some disbelief, and he subconsciously said, Master, what do you mean? You heard right. Chu Mo smiled and said, from now on, the 10,000 Beasts sect will cease to exist. Recognized again. Li Yue seemed to be finally sure of the authenticity of the news, and tears came to her eyes in an instant. God see the pity. Since she had seen her own relatives and ancestors die under the hands of the martial artists of the 10,000 Beasts sect, and she herself even needed to bring her younger brother to flee for her life in a hurry, her status had fallen from the originally honored Miss Li, the pearl in the palm of the hand that countless people held in their hands and cared for, to the dirt in an instant. Such a huge blow. If it had been placed on someone else, I'm afraid it would have been a cause for despair. But Li Yue gritted her teeth and held on. Instead of being crushed, they gritted their teeth and worked harder and harder because she knows very well. The fact that he and his brother were able to survive was a chance that the old ancestor had traded his life for them. So now, she's not just living for herself, but for her brother, and for the countless loved ones who have already died. She had to cultivate hard and grow up, and wait until she had enough strength to remove the 10,000 Beasts sect in order to avenge this great hatred. What kind of behemoth was the 10,000 Beasts sect? How hard would it be to overthrow it with one's own strength? Good on. Today, her master told her that the 10,000 Beasts sect had been completely annihilated, and that her great revenge had been avenged, and she would no longer have to worry about it in the future. Visible to the naked eye. Her entire being seemed to be completely relaxed, as if 1,000 pounds had been lifted off her shoulders. That's a good thing. Why are you crying? Looking at this scene, Chu Mo was also a little heartbroken. I'm not crying, just from being so happy. Li Yue wiped her tears and said. Don't worry, in the future, you will never encounter such aggravation again. No matter what you encounter, everything is there for the teacher. Chumo stroked her head and smiled. Listening to such warm words. Feeling again the palm of her master's hand placed on top of her head and gently patting it, Li Yue's heart only felt a wave of warmth welling up in her heart. She raised her head and looked at her master teacher who was close at hand, and her eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of radiance. Subsequently, nodding seriously, the night is in the air. The moon was like water, shining in the courtyard, with dappled bamboo shadows. After comforting the little girl, Chu Mo sat alone in the middle of the small courtyard, feeling the cool breeze of the night sky, his mind churning with thoughts. The 10,000 Beasts sect has been overthrown, and the worries have been eliminated. The most important thing to do next is to cultivate, and strive to raise your realm to the 8 desolate exalted realm at the fastest speed possible. Nowadays, Chu Mo was still in the realm of the 4 directions in general. This severely restricts the growth of his strength. If he was able to raise his realm of strength to 8 desolate exalted, he would be able to make a drastic change in his strength at that time. By that time, with his strong foundation and accumulation, it was estimated that he would be able to truly fight against the king. One thought. Chu Mo then couldn't help but get excited in his heart. The previous fight between the 3 kings of the Songhai King and the 10,000 Beasts sect patriarch had caused Chu Mo's heart to rise with an endless yearning and desire for the king realm. Nothing but. Now that I have 65,000 elephant power, according to my prediction, I'm afraid that I need to reach at least 150,000 elephant power before I can touch the limit of a Jin general and thus break through to the 8 desolate exalted realm. Now that I've upgraded my talent some more, making it so that I'm now able to have a cultivation growth rate of more than 40 elephants per day when added to the consumption of fierce beast blood, and with the aid of other heavenly materials and treasures, the rate could be even faster. But if we want to reach the Jin general limit, it will also take more than 4 years or even about 5 years. From the middle stage of Jin general, arriving at the peak of Jin general, it only took 5 years. If this speed was known by others, they would certainly be shocked beyond words. To know which of any town general martial artist in this world did not need 10, 20, or even several decades of accumulation. Instead, Trummer only needed 5 years. More importantly, ordinary Jin general martial artists were just enough to raise it to 20,000 elephant power. In other words, they can only increase their power by a handful of thousands or even hundreds of elephants per year. But Chu Mo's growth rate in 10 days could exceed a year of their hard cultivation. Such a terrifying speed was enough to make countless martial artists go crazy. But Chum Hum still felt it was too slow. I also wonder if there are any places that can speed up a martial artist's cultivation speed? Thinking so, Chu Mo planned to wait until tomorrow and ask the Mo clan's old ancestor. The next day, Chu Mo directly arrived at the headquarters of the Jade Merchant Alliance. Just as he entered, a young female martial artist greeted him and respectfully said, "Your Excellency Chu has come to visit. I hope you won't be offended if I've missed your welcome." "I'm looking for old ancestor Mo. Is he still at the Merchant Alliance headquarters?" Chum Hum asked directly. "Yes, I will go and inform you," the female martial artist said in a hurry. He then had someone guide Chu Mo to the VIP rest area on the side, serving good tea and snacks to entertain him. Chummer then waited patiently. After a while, then I heard a burst of bright laughter came, and immediately saw the old ancestor of the Mo family walk over. Old morning I heard magpies calling in the sky, and knew that today there will definitely be a good thing. Fruity, venerable Chu came to the door this time. "Old ancestor Mo is polite," Chummer said with a smile. The two of them entered into an ancient house, and after exchanging a few pleasantries, Chu Mo then stated his intentions. While hearing this, the Mo clan's old ancestor pondered for a long while, then said, "There is a place to accelerate cultivation, only it's in a small secret realm where the Yuan Qi has been depleted. Since the Yuan Qi is already depleted, how can it increase the speed of cultivation?" Chummer was a little puzzled. When a martial artist cultivates, all he needs is to absorb Yuan Qi to quench his body. But if you don't even have the vital energy, how can you talk about increasing your cultivation? Venerable Chu is in no hurry. Old Ancestor Mo explained, although that secret realm has already been depleted, there is an extremely rare treasure within it, and if one is able to place a pile of Yuan stones within it, one will automatically be able to absorb the Yuan Qi contained within it. The more Yuan stones you put in, the denser the Yuan Qi you possess. Back then, I once tried piling billions of lower-grade Yuan stones into it, and as a result, all the Yuan Qi was instantly sucked out, so much so that it actually formed a very terrifying thick fog. What's more, the transformed Yuan Qi is also particularly easy to be absorbed by the martial artist, and its cultivation speed is no less than being in a cave of heavenly treasures, which can at least increase the speed of the martial artist to obtain a speed increase of more than 10 times. And the more Yuan stones piled up, the greater the increase in cultivation one receives. I've tried up to a 20-fold increase in cultivation. When the old man was in seclusion, and even when Yangon broke through to Zunshur, this was the place he went to. Hearing those words, Chu Mo's heart immediately stirred. If it was really as old ancestor Mo had said, this was indeed a place that was very suitable for him to cultivate. As for the consumption of Yuanshur, Chu Mo didn't care. The last thing he lacked on him right now was Yuan stones. Adding up the before and after, and now Chu Mo's worth could be said to be more than 100 billion stones. Enough for him to splurge for a while. Thinking so, Chu Mo immediately opened his mouth, requesting the Mo clan ancestor to take him there. No problem. Old ancestor Mo didn't hesitate and directly agreed. He then brought Chu Mo to the outside of the large base of Jinling, flying all the way for tens of thousands of miles before entering a mine vein owned by the Jade Merchant Alliance. This is the entrance to that desolate secret realm. Venerable Chu, follow me. Old ancestor Mo led Chu Mo directly into a secret realm entrance deep within the vein. Waiting to go in. Chu Mo then realized that this place was really like what old man Mo had sighed. As far as the eye can see, it is full of desert and gobi, with very little life. After flying through the secret realm for thousands of miles, the Mo clan's ancestor stopped in his tracks. Venerable Chu, take a look, this is that precious place I was talking about. Follow the direction of the Mo clan ancestor's finger. Chu Mo then saw that there was a small mountain range in front of him, and when he looked at it from a high place, he could vaguely see that the mountain range seemed to form the appearance of a treasure bowl. And at the very core of the area is a huge alcove. Just by piling up the Yuan stones in the alcove, this place will automatically absorb all the Yuan Qi contained in the Yuan stones, and all of this Yuan Qi will also be gathered within this basin, and won't escape to other places, as if it's being blocked by some kind of formation. The Mo clan's old ancestor introduced. Hear that? Chu Mo then landed his body and landed in the middle of this basin. He first tentatively took out 100,000 lower-grade Yuan stones and placed them in the center groove. Next moment, from all around the basin, some Yuan Qi then steeply began to escape, while the Yuan Qi contained in the Yuan stone in the alcove was decreasing rapidly. The world is really big. Watching this scene, Chu Mo couldn't help but tsk. Shocked, aren't you? When I first saw this scene, I also had the same demeanor as you. The Mo family's old ancestor couldn't help but laugh out loud when he saw Chu Mo's expression. Then added, old me still has some things to deal with, so I'll leave first. Venerable Chu, just make yourself at home here. If there's anything, you can contact me again. This is goodbye. With that, he turned and left. Many thanks to Elder Mo. After watching the other party leave and waiting for him to disappear from sight, Chu Mo then withdrew his gaze. With such a precious land next, you can cultivate in peace for a while. Chumo thought darkly. Chapter 170 Gold-Eating Beast, Blade Chi Metamorphosis. Directly taking out tens of billions of dollars of stones, a brain dumped down. Shasta. An extremely majestic yuan chi swarmed out, so thick that it was even about to liquefy into yuan liquid. Stand here. Even if he just breathed, Chu Mo could feel the yuan chi from all directions swarming down his pores towards his body, and even formed a huge funnel as a result. This yuan chi transformation speed has really been accelerated by a lot. It's increased at least 20-fold. Chummer's eyes lit up. Originally, the villa he was staying in and the cultivation meditation room in the Tianji Pavilion already had a 4-fold cultivation bonus, and now under 20 times, it was equal to accelerating by another 5 times. In other words, he was now able to increase his elephant power by at least 200 every day. A strength growth rate of 200 elephants a day, what kind of concept is that? At this rate, it will only take a year at most for me to impact the 8 desolate exalted realm. Chumo thought excitedly subsequently. He no longer hesitated and directly took out a portion of fierce beast blood from within his carry-on space. Only this blood was a golden color. As soon as he opened the mouth of the bottle, the rich and pure energy poured out, causing the chi and blood in Chumo's body to stir wildly with it. This was the portion of Class 7 Fierce Beast Essence blood that the Bright Light King had gifted in the first place. Nor can it how much of an increase it will give me. With this thought in his mind, Chu Mo tilted his neck and drank this ferocious beast essence blood directly. Next moment, a violent and majestic power immediately escaped within the body, and the meridians all seemed unable to withstand such a terrifying power, and a feeling of distension and pain even appeared, as if they were about to be burst. Without hesitation, Chu Mo immediately executed the green cloud yuan power body forging secret art, rapidly absorbing the energy contained in the essence blood and quenching his body time rushes. In the blink of an eye more than 20 days had passed. Chu Mo finally finished digesting all of the raging energy contained in the 7th level ferocious beast's essence blood. In these 20 days or so, it was enough for Chu Mo to grow more than 30,000 elephants of strength. And that means, in addition to the natural growth of 5,000 elephant power, the additional growth brought to Chu Mo by the 7th level Fierce Beast Essence blood amounted to 25,000 elephant power. The results are amazing. But alas, there is only one copy. If not, Chu Mo would have been completely able to raise his cultivation to the peak of Jin General within 3 months, thus beginning to prepare to step into the 8 desolate exalted realm. 3 more days passed. Chu Mo suddenly received a message from Tianji Pavilion. It was said that an upper-level 6 metallic ferocious beast called the Gold-Devouring Beast had appeared to the north of the Jinling Great Base. Ever since the Tianji Pavilion had been functioning normally, the martial artists under their command had followed Chu Mo's request to scout for information on ferocious beasts. However, most of the ferocious beast intelligence they had obtained in the past did not meet Chu Mo's requirements, so they did not pay any attention to it. However, this gold-devouring beast that appeared today was somewhat special. Not only was it born to be able to devour gold, iron and mineral veins, but it could also produce an extremely terrifying ray within its body, and once it was spat out, the power was so terrifying that even a large mountain could be pierced through. After Chu Mo learned about it, interest was born in his heart. It just so happened that his gathering technique had also been refreshed, so he planned to go out and decapitate this gold-devouring beast and gather down its talents. According to the information given by Tianji Pavilion, Chu Mo directly flew in the direction north of the Jinling large base. An hour or so later, Chu Mo arrived in front of a mountain range and started inspecting it. Mental energy was also spread out, centering on itself and enveloping an area tens of miles around. Soon enough, he had spotted the gold-devouring beast. Deep in the mountains, in an open-air gold mine. Chu Mo landed his body and soon discovered a ferocious beast that was covered in gold color and resembled a beetle, which was currently devouring the yellow level. Its body was large, 3 stories high, and it exuded a powerful aura. At this point, it also saw Chu Mo, and immediately opened its mouth and let out an intimidating sound, followed by a golden pillar of light that shot out. The gold-eating beasts hated having other living beings near them when they were eating, and once they found out, they would all kill them. Seeing the light pillar shoot out, Chumo immediately activated his wind attribute talent and dodged it with a flash of his body. Bang! The pillar of light landed on the ground and directly pierced through the earth. Through spiritual perception, Chumo clearly felt that this light column directly pierced the earth for thousands of meters. Along the way, whether it has encountered dirt, stone, or gold and iron ore, all instantly cut and crushed, so as to form a straight tunnel. What a sharp metallic power! This gold-devouring beast's talent is at least top-notch, even reaching the transcendent level. Chumo secretly estimated in his mind. Ho ho ho! The gold-devouring beast realized that its strike actually didn't kill this tiny mole cricket in front of it, which instantly made it feel a bit surprised, and then roared a few times again, and immediately a pillar of light was sprayed out from its mouth. Obviously, it was already in a somewhat unhappy mood. How dare you be reckless in front of me? Seeing the situation, Chumo lightly laughed, then his body's chi and blood stirred, and as the shadowless phantom steps were performed, his body transformed into a trail of stumps as he rushed towards this gold-devouring beast. Clank! The autumn-killing blade violently came out of its sheath, wrapped in an extremely sharp blade intent that cut through the sky, instantly descending in front of this gold-devouring beast before falling heavily. Clang! Only a sound of gold and iron clashing could be heard, and countless sparks splashed from the body of the gold-devouring beast flew in all directions. Within this short moment of time, Chumo had already chopped out hundreds of slashes one after another, yet he hadn't even broken through the shell of the gold-devouring beast. The gold-eating beast was an extremely peculiar ferocious beast. Not only could he swallow gold and iron ores, but he could even digest the essence of such minerals, thus accumulating it in his body and making his flesh and carapace tougher. As a grade 6 upper-level gold-devouring beast, it had already devoured an unknown number of ores since its birth, and its shell and muscles were so hard that it was feared that even if an 8 desolate venerable was in front of it, it would be very difficult to cleave it apart. Although he knew this, he was still a bit surprised to see it with his own eyes at the moment. And in the meantime, because of Chumo's constant slashes, although it didn't break the gold-devouring beast's defense apart, the tremendous force of the recoil as each slash fell also caused it to feel pain. Therefore, the gold-devouring beast was also completely enraged. It directly stood upright and opened its mouth, and countless golden points of light shot down like a violent wind and rain. Each golden point of light was wrapped in an extremely terrifying sharpness, although it had not yet fallen, but the overpowering breath had already scraped people's skin raw pain. This was the Gold Eater's wide-range attack. Chumo didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly performed the shadowless illusionary steps once again, and the entire person left this place in an instant. And almost at the exact moment he had just moved around. Countless points of light then already fell on the ground, only to hear the sound of poo 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 endless. The ground appeared one by one hundreds of meters deep, interlocked with each other poured straight deep holes. Looking up from high up, it's like a dense ant hole. I didn't realize you actually had such a tactic. But it ends here. In the midst of murmuring, a purple light suddenly appeared on Chumo's body. Next moment, infinite thunder instantly swept out, turning the area of hundreds of meters around him into a sea of thunder. In an instant the berserk thunder contained a terrifying destructive power that raged around them, then formed a terrifying thunder python that spread onto the gold-devouring beast's body. Boom! 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 A thunderous blast mercilessly landed on the gold-devouring beast's body. It has a horrible defense though. However, because he had been devouring metal for years, his body was filled with metallic power everywhere, and what he feared the most was the power of thunder. This moment blasted down. He saw those thunders wreaking havoc all over his body, and it didn't take long for a burning smell to come from him. Roar! It roared, a pained look in its eyes, then with a turn, it intended to escape. Want to go? Chumo's eyes condensed, his hands closed together, and the thunder power around him immediately surged, eventually forming an extremely large thunder column that directly cleaved towards the head of the gold-devouring beast Ka-ching. Thunder from a clear sky and muffled thunder on dry land. The moment the terrifying thunder exploded, the entire body of the gold-devouring beast seemed to be wrapped in thunder, directly stiffening in place. A few breaths later, only a violent explosion could be heard. Boom! The gold-devouring beast was scorched black and fell to the ground with a loud bang, completely motionless. Retrieving all the thunder, Chu Mo took a step in front of the gold-devouring beast and directly started collecting. Capture successful. Gaining a transcendent level metallic talent. Capture successful. Obtaining the blood of the gold-devouring beast, a Class 6 beast. Gathering twice in succession, he gathered all the treasures that this gold-devouring beast possessed. Unsurprisingly, Chummer was surprised. Sure enough, it was a transcendent level metallic talent. Fusion. There was no hesitation, and the mind mumbled directly. Boom. A sensation of pain surged steeply within Chu Mo's body. The mysterious energy was transforming Chu Mo's body. The genes and cells were constantly reorganizing and evolving. Gradually, a strand of sharpness escaped from his body. After a few moments, the pain slowly dissipated. Trummer opened his personal information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendent Level Indestructible Thunder Body, Transcendent Level Supreme Blade Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Blade Cultivation Talent, Morning Star Level Wind Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Metallic Attribute, Transcendent Level Wood Attribute Talent, Higher Space Attribute, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Dark Attribute Talent. Looking at his information panel, a smile appeared on Chu Mo's face today. He already possessed 2 Morning Star ranked talents, 4 Transcendent ranked talents, and 3 higher talents. Plus 2 Transcendental level physiques. With such a strong talent and physique, other than Chu Mo, I'm afraid that in this world, there would never be another person to be found. Thinking so, Chu Mo was slightly proud in his heart. Try the bonus that the Transcendent Grade Metallic Talent gives me. Collecting his mind, Chu Mo took out the Autumn Killing Blade, and under the 70% increase in blade intent, a skyrocketing aura rose to the sky spin. Chu Mo added on the sharpness attached to his metallic talent. Shasta. It was as if a metamorphosis had taken place, and as if it had been sublimated. Chu Mo then realized that the sharpness wrapped around his long sword had steeply surged, and even faintly emitted a bared sound. Before it was even swung, the space near the blade had already begun to distort, and even some black turbulence appeared. A knife cuts out. Only a crimson-colored pike came out across the sky, wrapped in an infinite overpowering killing aura, instantly chopping towards the front. The blade chi whistled across the sky, spanning a distance of tens of kilometers, and finally landed in a void, cutting out a dark spatial crack that dissipated instantly. Looking at this scene, a touch of shock appeared in Chu Mo's eyes. He hadn't thought about it. The transcendent level metallic talent unexpectedly allowed him to cut through even space with this slash. To know. Tearing apart the void, this was something that only the Cave Heavenly King realm could do. In other words, under the metal nature enchantment, it had already caused his blade chi to undergo a qualitative metamorphosis. According to this sharpness, if I were to face this gold-devouring beast again at this moment, a single slash would definitely be able to cut through its shell and muscles. Chumo thought darkly.